listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I am your host, I am your guide, as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. until midnight, right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, in Europe on Radio X. And you can always listen to the X-Zone 7/24/365 at www.xzoneradiotv.com. My first guest tonight is Richard DeRose, and in 1998 he published a book entitled Retail to Hell: Why We Need to Fear the Information Highway, Superstores, and Superpowers. The book foretold how the greatest economic powers ever conceived, the USA, would fail in just a decade if we didn't change its course of action. In the book, he told how, why, and when. Now, no one listened, and now it's coming true. How did he know this? How did he know that this would happen? Because he had written about it before. 30 years ago, he wrote a book entitled Brainwashed, Are You? This amazing and inspiring book tells so much that it is not understood. However, the world wasn't ready for the truth then, nor was it ready in 1998, so went unpublished for 33 years. Joining me now to talk about what is going on in this weird, wacky world of ours is Richard DeRose. And Richard, welcome back to the X-Zone. Great having you with us.
Thank you, Rob. It's great to be back.
Hey, I have to ask you, Rich, you've always got your fingers on the pulse of the nation. You've foretold things that were going to happen today, 30-some-odd years ago. What is going on in the political arena? It's like a three-ring circus.
Yeah, it's getting crazy out there. I think really it's kind of leading up to like a revolution in the sense that so many people are getting so, like in Bernie Sanders' case or Trump's or Cruz, they feel like this is just not working out for them. They're being betrayed. And so, this is the kind of thing that leads up to revolution in a sense, or social unrest that we've never seen before. Blacks, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. They're
ticked off about stuff. So, we've never seen this before, and the racial divide in this country is huge.
Let's talk a second about the Republican Party. You've got Senator Cruz, you've got Marco Rubio, you've got Senator Kasich, and of course Donald Trump. Why is Kasich hanging in there? He has nothing. He's won nothing.
Well, it's narcissism. These people can't let go. He keeps talking about how he's got a chance to win. I mean, this guy's got to be a nutcase, too. He may be qualified in his own way, but they want it so bad. And just like Rubio, he's really an anchor baby. Neither his father or mother were American citizens at the time he was born.
Really?
Came here from Cuba. And, they came before, Castro took control of the country and therefore didn't go back because I think he originally lived in Miami and then moved to Nevada. And so, that's just how it is. And, there's all kind of rumors about who he was and what his family's about and this, that, and the other. So, he at the time of 7 years old, he told his friends that he wanted to be president of the United States. So he's been programming himself to do that. And I guess he's very discouraged that he's not doing any better than he is.
Well, didn't Rubio win yesterday in Puerto Rico? Mind you, it carries no delegates.
I think it was like 19 delegates if there were that many. So he's like half of the delegates that Cruz has, and Cruz is probably about 85 delegates below
Trump.
And
then, of course, you've got
there's not much hope for.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say there's not much hope for Rubio to pull this out, even though he was the really remaining establishment candidate.
Well, according to what Rubio's press manager or director of communications was saying, that he really believes that he is going to win Florida. And even if he doesn't win Florida, he's going to be sticking in.
Right. It's interesting. It's like a chess game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you understand the different moves that people can make, you might understand what's happening. I think Cruz is certainly moving up because they're demagoguing Trump so badly that a lot of people that don't know who Trump is
right.
are kind of afraid to vote for him that might have voted for him before. So he's not getting that sort of momentum or the wind in his sails that he needs to carry on
sure.
through. So it's possible that he may not win Florida. He should. And he should win Ohio, but he may not.
Well, let's see what's going to happen. It's just days away. Exonation. Yeah. Richard DeRose is our guest. www.brainwashedareyu.com. And we'll both be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Richard DeRose is my guest, www.brainwashedareyu.com. Richard, we were talking about Senator Cruz, we were talking about Senator Rubio, and you sent me some information entitled, Confirm Senator Ted Cruz is neither a U.S. natural-born citizen or a legal U.S. citizen. What's that about?
Well, I've said that all along. He was actually born in Canada, and we talked about it on your last program where he basically has no legal rights to be a natural-born citizen. Of course, the way we interpret things in America, we don't stand for much anymore, so we kind of let a lot of rules and laws go. And he's a constitutionalist in the sense that that's what he's running on, and he's also legally that way, just like Obama was. But they're the ones that seem to, forget about the Constitution when it comes to, when it pertains to them. So. At least Obama was smart enough to say he was born in Hawaii, but Ted Cruz, had to admit he was born in Canada. But if Obama knew that he had to be born in Hawaii to be legal, then why isn't it, Cruz has to be born here? He's trying to use a link between his mother being a citizen. And like that article talks about, in Canada you can only have citizenship in one country.
That's right.
So therefore, mother had to sign over his rights or give up her rights as a U.S. citizen in order for him to be a citizen. He's never, gotten citizenship here officially, and only through the link between his mother. And it's just the way it works, and it's just not right. And so, what's wrong with our Constitution when we don't interpret it that he's a natural-born citizen? Because they wanted loyalty. If you're born in the country, your father was born here, and even your mother, then there's more likely a chance that you're going to be more loyal. It doesn't mean you're going to, but it's more likely that you will be, because people fight and die for their land.
So what do you think is going to happen? Because I remember months ago, during the Republican debates, Donald Trump was saying, and he was very adamant, that Cruz was not an American citizen, and yet it seemed to be swept under the carpet, and now it's starting to raise its head again.
Well, that's also because Ted Cruz is in the number 2 spot now. He's the one that could depose Trump from being number 1, and so therefore it's becoming more important. It's like anything else. You can say some bad stuff about Rubio and some of the rumors about him and his drug use and his drug connections and this, that, the other. They're out there, but nobody cares until they become number 1. And a lot of people didn't care about some of the stuff that Trump did. They mentioned about his Trump University and this, that, and the other. Now, he's getting close to the nomination, and everybody's starting to make a big deal of it. So this is not going to go away. It's going to be a big issue, and there's at least one case in court right now where it's being questioned by somebody that's asking a judge to look at it. And like I say, if he gets up there, and becomes a nominee or real close, they could certainly disqualify him in a heartbeat. There's at least one judge who would do that. It
seems that on both sides of the ticket, on the Democratic as well as on the Republican ticket, there are a lot of skeletons that are coming out of the closet. On the Democratic side, you've got Secretary Clinton, who is under investigation by the FBI. One of her people actually made a deal with the Justice Department to talk to the FBI in order of getting, being what's the phrase they used? Immunity. That's right.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen with her is they're not doing anything right now until she gets the nomination. They want to make sure that Bernie Sanders is out of the way, and then she'll probably be indicted, and they'll put somebody like Biden, Joseph Biden or someone like that in her place.
What do you think the chances of her getting indicted are?
Well, she certainly should be. There's no question about, Petraeus and, what happened to him was far less than what she's done. And she's betrayed us in the sense that, we've spent a lot of money, billions of dollars trying to protect, our secrets. Mm-hmm. And she turns around and puts it on a server. I mean, it's scary to think that people would even vote for her, much less she's a leading contender in the Democratic Party. And a lot of that has to do with black votes that just thinking about what can I get for myself.
But let me ask you this. The fact that she is the first woman running for president that's gotten this close, does that have a lot to play with the leniency that she's been given by the Justice Department?
Probably, but also, she dropped out. She might be, prosecuted, so she almost has to stay in to try to strike a good deal with them.
Never thought of that.
I read something on the internet. You never know if it's true or not.
Yeah.
But she's claiming that, or what they say in this article is that, she's kind of blackmailing Obama by saying that I'm going to release your, official Kenyan birth certificate if you, try to go after me. And he's the one person that can stop it. The FBI is very upset about it because their whole credibility is online here.
That's right.
If they can't take her down, then, who are they? And why should anybody abide by their rules or laws? And we're already seeing people rebelling, and, out in Arizona, was it Nevada? That crowd out there, they've arrested some of them over the land rights.
Oh, right, in Oregon.
Grazing.
Yeah.
And then, you got the Black Lives Matter, policemen getting killed because just randomly getting shot because people are upset about some of the stuff going on there. So we're starting to see, the fabric of America sort of unravel here, and it's going to be, dangerous if the FBI can't actually prosecute somebody who, has done something criminal. It's not fair to you or me or anyone else. Of course, you're not an American citizen, but any citizen of the America, it's not fair to us and hold us accountable to rules and laws if you're gonna let her off just because she's running for president.
And there are so many Americans who are saying that if Trump gets in, they're going to be moving to Canada. So we Canadians have decided that we're going to get a wall built and we're going to get Trump to pay for it.
Yeah. That would be a good idea because some of those people you don't really want. They'll just come up there and mess up your world.
Yeah.
But I like Donald Trump because I'm a capitalist, and what we have in Retail to Hell basically talks about it, is a system that's turned so corrupt. It's crony capitalism day. We've got government out of control. They're writing rules and regulations that don't make sense, that just hurt the system. And you're not necessarily proving any good and not really enforcing them. The people who want to get by with them can pretty much do what they want, and others, have to break the law in order to succeed in life and make things work. Life has never been easy. If you go back to the time of the Civil War, people weren't really opposed to, the freeing the slaves. They were afraid out of fear that, doing such would cause social unrest and, economic unrest that they couldn't live with because things were so tight then. People were just barely getting by. And now we have a situation where, people have more and they basically, have more to lose than they did even back in those days. So it's a scary time, and like I say, we can't look to anybody and feel confident that they're going to somehow, help us. And with Trump, for example, at least he's making the promise he's going to try. He may not give any specifics, but he's trying to, convince people he can do it, just like Ronald Reagan did.
Right. When I look at what's happening with Donald Trump and how the established Washington old boys club are starting to react. It seems that they're ticked off that a Joe Public, a member of the public, we the people, was actually able to get as far as he has gotten without having to have spent years and years and years in politics. What he's doing is he's proving the founding fathers right.
That's right, yeah. But he's also doing it because people are finally waking up to the fact that things are rotten in America. They've been putting on their blinders and living in their rose-colored glass world, and it's just a sad situation that they're waking up so late, because this needed to be done 25, 30 years ago.
I also believe that he is saying what so many people have been thinking, but they have been suppressed by being part of the over-political correct society. That's
true. Well, let's good example. One of the things that people say about him, he's a hater. He's against Hispanics and Muslims and this, that, and the other. But none of what he says doesn't have significant merit. You don't want people coming to this country. I could send you another article I read talking about the growth of America, the way it's growing in population. But 49% of the boomlets, Generation Z, which is about 15 on down to 0, are Hispanic. Okay? Now, most of those are illegal. So if we allow them to be anchor babies and become legal citizens when the baby boomers are gone, because they are the largest population ever born in the United States, they will virtually be able to completely control the white race, the black race, the Asian race, and any other race that's here, the Indians or whatever, and they'll get their way. And they're not necessarily qualified to run, and nor do they, really work hard to get ahead like a lot of people assume they do. They're only getting ahead because they're managed and they're hungry and they're desperate. They come here from Mexico or other South American countries, looking for something, but their children usually turn out to be just like American kids, which is not good. But it is what it is, and so you don't want your country to be turned upside down. We went to 0 population growth in 1990 in the United States, and what that meant was Americans heard that, it's not good to reproduce and have too many people and this, that, and the other. But why we are growing is from, people coming in this country through immigration, and much of it's illegal, and that part is scary. It's scary what's going to happen. So, like I say, we'll be the United States of Mexico here in about 25 to 30 years. And so what Trump is saying, and I wish he'd come out and give the facts, because facts might make people understand what he's talking about, is not about hating anybody. It's about controlling your borders and who your country is, and about what's wrong with the white race. Why shouldn't they dominate in some ways, at least one place in the world? I think France in 30 years will be, a Muslim state.
Yes.
Or maybe less. So what's wrong with that? Maybe the only place for that to happen is Canada. You might be the only place in 30 years that, the white race.
Oh, I don't even think that'll happen, my friend. Because our government has opened the doors to taking in refugees left, right, and center. In fact, there was something on the news the other day where there's not enough available housing to house the Canadians who are in Hamilton who need shelters. But the government settled 2,000 refugees here and are giving them priority.
Are they Syrian refugees or?
Syrian refugees, yeah.
Oh, right.
Stand by, friend. You and I have to stand by. We've got to take our break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation Richard DeRose is our special guest. www.brainwashedru.com. And Richard and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue talking about everything within the world of the paranormal, the science of parapsychology, and the great beyond. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
And welcome back, everyone. Richard DeRose is our special guest this hour. www.brainwashedaru.com. That's www.brainwashedaru.com. Richard, what's your take on Bernie Sanders?
Well, some of his ideas I like because he's talking about ending crony capitalism, but he's a socialist, and therefore, his system won't work. And I know young people today that say, oh, this is what we need, capitalism is a failure. But what they don't understand is it's corruption of capitalism that's causing the failure, and asking too much, for a system that can't give it to them. Socialism is the same way. It becomes corrupted, too, once people get power. Power corrupts. That's what's going to happen to Bernie. I mean, it's just not, people aren't going to be happy with it.
I listen to him, and, he wants free schools, free university, free this, free that. Why doesn't somebody ask him where he's going to get the money to do this from?
Well, they do, but, his group is basically a lot of young people that aren't showing up necessarily to vote that much, but they're scared, and I don't blame them for being scared. Their parents have screwed things up so bad because they sat and didn't, like we said, talking about earlier, politically correct and this, that, and the other, and they let things slide so far in one way that, they're worried that they're not going to have a future. And so they're grabbing on anything they can get a hold of. That's what happened with, Adolf Hitler. When he got into power, people were desperate in Germany after World War I, and he came along, and next thing you know, we got a world war going on.
Is it too late to turn things around?
I think so, but, it's possible. I think the only hope we have is Donald Trump, because he has to get in there and knock heads and scare people and convince them they better go along with him or he's going to expose them. He's the only one that's got the guts to do that. Ted Cruz doesn't have that ability, and he's too rigid in his thinking. He won't compromise, and that's what Trump talks about. You got to compromise some, and America is a somewhat liberal but yet conservative country, and Ted Cruz is, conservative to the right. He's not going to be able to govern, and then, like we talked about earlier, since he's not a natural-born citizen, people will question his legitimacy to be president, and they'll resent that and work against him. So within 2 years, we'll probably see a Democratic Congress, and then nothing will get done. We'll be at another stalemate, and time will be wasted, and, they keep saying that's what's going to happen if Trump gets in. But, that may not be the case. It may, one of the houses may go Democratic, but the other one, like the Senate, might stay in the Republican Party and the presidency. So they could get things done that way. But it's just a situation that's not going to change, I think, unless Trump does get in and Trump makes a difference. But people in power are so afraid that he's going to ruin things for them. They've been milking the system for so long. And people have a right, super right, to be angry if he doesn't get in.
What is meant by a brokered convention? We hear that a lot on the news, and us Canadians, we're not really familiar with that phrase.
Well, what that means is basically when, say, Trump doesn't get, I think it's 1,273, delegates, that he can't walk in and declare himself to be the candidate for the or the choice for the Republican Party. So then they have a vote, and then they decide, who's going to get it, and that opens the door up. If enough people don't vote for Trump the first time to give him enough delegates, then, it's all, anything can go from that point on. And it's the same is true for Cruz. If he doesn't have enough delegates at that time, he won't be the front runner. And I think they're going to be neck and neck so close that it's going to be a situation where it'll have to be a brokered convention, and then the Republican Party at that time can manipulate things and put the person they want in maybe it's, Mitt Romney, who knows. It'd be a shame to let him back in. He's had 2 tries at it already and blew the last time when he sort of disappeared that last month.
Well, this is what I can't understand. Why would anybody listen to Mitt Romney?
Yeah, a lot of people are mad because they feel like, he betrayed them in a sense, and then putting out information that I think it was 10 or 15 years before the Trump people, put out a video where he's praising Donald Trump, and now that he's got a chance to be president, where Mitt was a loser. Herschel Walker said something like, I don't know why he's in this thing. He says, something about, Trump being in the Super Bowl. And, so Herschel Walker, you probably don't know who he is, one of the great football players from Georgia. He basically supporting Trump, and he's black. So it goes to show you Trump has black support. people just really want things to get better for themselves. They don't care who's president. And but like I say, Trump's so misunderstood. I've researched this man completely, and I can tell you, besides some of his boisterous statements and this, that, and the other, and some that are emphatic in the sense that he should have said, well, most people are like this or this, that, and the other, he has been right on the money about everybody.
I find it rather ironic that so many Republicans are saying that the Republican Party is the party of Lincoln and Reagan, and then they go and start bashing the, Trump because he is a reality TV star. Well, wait a minute, hold on. Wasn't Ronald Reagan a movie star that starred with a monkey, for God's sake?
That's right.
So how come there's...
But he was also a governor in the process of getting to the presidency. But what people don't remember about him was they were just afraid of Reagan before he became president. He ran one time and lost, and then he ran the next time, and he won. And but they were scared of him until he got in office, and Reaganomics actually started working. Then everybody loved him, and he won by a landslide the next time for re-election. So I think the same could be true for Trump. It's hard to say for sure how he's going to act, but we need someone like that. When Reagan got in office, they immediately in Iran released the prisoners that they had because they were afraid of him.
Yep.
This could be true for Trump. They're not afraid of Obama, so it's costing the world. I mean, Canada and other nations around the world are paying for the mistakes of America in going into Syria and with the CIA and causing that war. And you can easily look this up and verify it. And then, all these people are fleeing because we started that to get rid of Assad. And, it's just a shame, and we just blew it. And we blew it in the Middle East all the way around.
Yeah.
Invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, the United States caused this problem, and for the most part, you're having to pay for it in Canada and, other countries in Europe in particular, and it's all a U.S. caused, situation.
Earlier today, it was said that the North Korean government, what's the prime minister's name there, Kim Jong-un, was saying that because of the Allied exercises that are taking part in South Korea, with the Americans and the South Koreans, that he is threatening a nuclear attack on the United States and South Korea. How is he allowed to get away with this without suffering any retaliation of some sort?
Well, there are sanctions against him, but he hasn't actually, pulled the plug yet. So, he does this almost every year, but it's getting a little more serious this time, where, he doesn't want all that activity going on in, his border, because, it was Korea, now it's North and South Korea.
Right.
So, he feels like he's justified. And they say there's problems internally. I think he had several generals executed here recently. And so he's trying to, bolster his strength among his people by appearing to be tough.
And then you've got China building these bases 600 miles off the coast of China that will give them the ability to attack the United States. And once again, nobody's doing anything about it. How come?
Well, like I say, we're a wimpish country right now. China is not America's friend. It's unfortunate, but I've said this for 20 years, and particularly the last 10, that if you want to destroy a nation, what you do is you go in and take their business and their life, out of their jobs and this, that, and the other, and employ your people, build your economy up, and then sell them these second-rate goods that all start to fail at one time, so they can't replace them, and they're basically broke because they don't have enough money, because they don't have enough jobs. And that's exactly what China has done, and you can basically take over the country by buying us out without ever firing a shot. And we owe them trillions of dollars.
That's scary.
It is scary, and it's scary that we were stupid enough to let it happen.
What was the reasoning behind letting it happen, though?
Well, I used to be an Ace Hardware dealer, and when I took over in 1990, that's one of the reasons I was able to write this book, Retail to Hell. We were probably 80% U.S.-made goods, but other competition like Home Depot, Lowe's, and West, and these other companies were selling foreign products, and I was all for, getting some products here from China. So Ace Hardware jumped on the bandwagon, and in 6 years, by that time, we were probably about 70 or 80%, foreign goods. And so those manufacturers closed. We don't even make fasteners in this country, and that's a national security issue. How do you nail stuff together and hold things together without screws and nails, and that's a basic, security issue thing, and they're all made in China. And they're made, in a lot of ways, inferior to what we used to have when they were American-made.
What do you think can turn it around besides changing the president, which is going to happen whether people want it or not? But when you look at the two top contenders, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, who do you think would be the best president for the United States? President Trump or President Clinton?
Absolutely President Trump, because he's the one that's talking about changing stuff. Hillary's just a talker, and we can't afford any more talking. We need to get things done. And I see a lot, because I'm old enough to do that, of Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. It's just who he is. Now, he may really disappoint everybody. He may not be able to follow through. He's got to stay healthy and this, that, and the other. And so he may be a big letdown. But on the other hand, I think he's got the potential to do that. She has no potential to do anything other than maintain the status quo. And like you mentioned in the very beginning, in 2008, this economy basically collapsed. We went into bankruptcy. And the only way we've been, keeping it from collapsing completely is we've gone into huge deficit spending. And it's just tremendous. We'll be probably close to $21 trillion by the time Obama's out of office, where before it was $8 trillion. It wasn't, I think, $4 trillion before Bush got into office. So you see how it's growing, so fast. It's pathetic. And Trump was even saying he thinks it might get to $24 trillion before the system actually does collapse. So that's not far away.
How I look at it,
3-4 years.
How I look at it is that the United States of America, the government, is a business. It's run like a business. It's got the president's CEO, and then you've got the vice president. Then you've got the board of directors. You've got the House, the Congress, and the Senate, and then you've got the shareholders, and that is everyone who votes. So, in my opinion, in order to get the problem resolved, you need a strong business head, and I think that this is what Donald Trump will bring as president.
Right. Hillary Clinton's never run a business. Neither has Cruz or Rubio. They've all worked for the government most of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Cruz has been, with the Supreme Court, and then I think the Federal Trade Commission for 4 or 5 years. In fact, Cruz had a lot to do with opening up the Internet for trade, and that's hurt Americans a lot. I'm not opposed to the Internet itself, but, a lot of people lost their jobs because of it.
Sure.
And but Cruz is one of the main instigators of all that, broke the rules with the Federal Trade Commission to let that happen. I didn't know that till the last few weeks. But, so he has been influential in that way, but he hasn't worked. He's never, to my knowledge, created a job or hired people other than people working through what he's getting paid to do in, his Senate seat or, through the state government he was in.
Who do you think is running the best campaign?
Probably Cruz is. The problem with Trump was, he's bombastic and he gets a lot of press, so that means he doesn't need a lot of advertising. But Cruz, they say, has a pretty well organized, and so does Hillary Clinton, group of people that can move from state to state and district to district and get out the vote. Trump's kind of just playing along, on his own merits, and that's not smart in the long run. I was hoping by, not winning Iowa, that would straighten his act up and he'd start hiring some of these people that are dropping out, some of their staff.
Sure.
So, and I'm sure he has to a certain degree. I don't know what the whole details are, but he definitely is not as organized as Cruz is.
I watched Senator Cruz when he's talking, and there's something that just doesn't click right. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see that with Bernie Sanders. I don't see that with Hillary. I don't see that with Marco Rubio. I don't see that with Kasich. I don't see that with Trump. But when I'm watching Cruz, something doesn't, that gut feeling you get, the intuition?
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's interesting you should say that. I try to keep figuring out what it is. But I think, for one thing, it's birthright, situation.
Mm-hmm.
He should know better. Like I said, he's been working for SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, and, here he is playing his, supporters like fools. And this guy is like a guy that, goes out and goes to Las Vegas and he borrows $100,000 hoping to come back with $1 million. That's not very likely to happen.
No.
He's putting a lot of his people out there on a whim that could easily be taken away from him.
By the way, Richard, no matter what happens, we don't want Cruz back here.
Well, he certainly betrayed y'all in the sense that he doesn't want to be a Canadian citizen. He just dropped his citizenship in 2014.
Well, you know what? If he did that, like we've got many Canadians who've done that. Some of our greatest artists and talent go to the United States because I hate to say this when it comes to the entertainment industry, Canada does not play with a full deck. We've got, if there's a great show in the United States, they try to copy it up here instead of coming up with their own original material. Let me see. Leonard Nimoy, not Leonard Nimoy, but William Shatner, Gordon Lightfoot, Michael J. Fox, and the list goes on and on and on. We'll take them back any day, but we won't take back Ted Cruz. Now, I know that we're a forgiving country, but sorry, guys, Senator Cruz, you cannot come back to Canada as a visitor anytime. But to ask for your citizenship back, no way.
Well, I wish more Americans felt that way about him, but they will if he gets in office and then he starts pulling some of his tricks, because he will not negotiate. He said that many times. I feel like this is where it should, and this is where it's going to be. And like I say, he's too conservative for the United States as a whole.
But doesn't he accuse Donald Trump of the same thing, that Trump won't negotiate, he'll demand things?
I think in some ways they're saying he's going to negotiate everything, and therefore he's not conservative. And that's one of the big things. So he's got CPAC, but what really bugs me about Cruz is he keeps saying he's the only one that can win the national election in the Republican Party. Of course, Rubio tries to say the same thing, but the fact is Trump is the only one that can actually gain access to the independents and also some Democrats, Reagan Democrats, and maybe, like you say, some Bernie Sanders folks that are frustrated, and Trump is talking about fixing some of these problems.
Richard, I hate to do this, but I've got to take my break. We'll be right back. Richard DeRose is our special guest. BrainwashedAreYou.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Richard DeRose is our guest this hour. www.brainwashedareYou. And for more information about Richard, please visit his website. Once again, www.brainwashedareYou.com. Richard, how much do you think the media is playing in this election?
I think a good bit. Actually, the media is controlled by the establishment. They own it. And so if you step out a little bit, like they say in China, the old nail that stands up gets hammered down. So they could pretty much go along with what, basically the establishment wants. So that's why we don't get the truth, and that's why a lot of Americans don't respect the media anymore.
What truth don't you think the Americans are getting? What do you think the mainstream media is hiding from the Americans?
Well, almost everybody comes out with their own narrative. Like they might give you some truth, so you're buying into that, and then all of a sudden they start twisting that truth around to tell their own side of the story. And I just went to the Cato Benefactors Conference in Las Vegas last week, a little over a week ago. And, it's the same thing there. You're sitting there listening to a lot of the stuff they put out, and you think, oh, great, that's true. And then you find out that, they're still putting out their own narrative. The answers aren't with the Libertarian Party, per se. They basically feel like it's laissez-faire, let the government, sit back and nothing happening other than, good people doing good things. But they don't build roads. They don't build social systems to protect people and this, that, and the other. They're not going to necessarily create jobs. It's not their responsibility to create jobs. So, the libertarian concept is flawed just as much as anybody else's, but they basically believe they're correct because they don't seem to have a conscience about the outcome. And on the other side of the coin, socialism is great, the best system of all, but what happens when the money runs out? Then nobody gets anything. So That's why I believe in capitalism, but it's got to be controlled capitalism in the sense that it can't become corrupted. And people have to understand the limitations, and that's what Retail to Hell is all about, is letting people understand there's limitations to capitalism. It can't do everything, and we have to live within those limitations. Even the Bible talks about there'll always be the poor among you.
Yeah.
We can't correct that. That's the way it's going to be.
Here's a question for you, Richard. I haven't asked this question to anyone else. I was waiting for you to come on the show to ask you this. All right, let's say Donald Trump is successful, and I hope he is, in winning being the choice for the Republican Party. Who do you think that he will pick as his running mate as vice president?
That's interesting. I've thought about that. At one time, I thought it might be Ted Cruz, but that won't happen now. But it could be Kasich. I think that Chris Christie is probably looking for, the Attorney General's office, and that's why he went for him.
Right.
He could be wanting to be vice president, and that might work too. But so I wouldn't rule him out. But Kasich would be a good, person that would probably cool people down a little bit.
How about Sarah Palin?
No, I think she is probably too much of a big mouth.
Yeah.
People get irritated with her. I agree with most everything she says, but I swear I can't stand to listen to her.
Yeah, she's got that kind of voice that it's like putting fingernails on a chalkboard and scratching.
Exactly. That's a good way to describe it.
Hey, Rich, as always, great talking to you, my good friend. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us, and we'll have you on in the next couple of weeks so we can take another look at what's happening in the three-ring circus in the United States called the presidential nomination fiasco. Richard, take care of yourself, my friend.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great to be on.
Exonation, Richard DeRose has been our guest, www.brainwashedareyu.com, and I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Send me your emails, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, and our website where you can listen to the X Zone, 724-365, www.xzoneradiotv.com.